Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friends of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Brad.
And I'm your host, Sarah.
And this is Andor Candor. This will be our final episode for Andor Season 1. And what a special one, because we are joined by a friend of the show, Catrina Dennis. Catrina, welcome to Friends of the Force.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a long time coming. I've been a long time listener, and I'm real excited to talk about the end of this first season.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What a finale to the Andor Season 1. I mean, just through and through, I feel like from start to finish, it was perfection every single episode. And oh my gosh, what were your thoughts on, like, overall thoughts on the finale, and how did it strike a chord with you?
I mean, I don't think, and I'm sure, like, at this point, it's a little bit of a cliche to say, like, there's nothing out there like Andor right now. And I don't think I've had such a satisfying end to, like, an initial season as I did when I was watching the finale, like, last night and rewatching it today. Like, it just, it does what a finale is supposed to do. It ties up all the loose ends and lays ground for season 2, but it just resonates in so many ways. And this is another one where, like, there's not just one incredible performance this episode. There's like 5 incredible performances, and all our key players are doing big things. And it was so good. I'm so pleased.
I am truly right there with you. Not that I think they weren't going to stick the landing, but I couldn't have been more pleased and more gratified, like, coming out of it. I think it really hit all of the like emotional beats I was hoping it would, and also impressed me and totally surprised me in so many ways with regards to the music, and just how everything came together. It felt like the spider web being so carefully crafted, and then you look and as the light is shining in a particular way, and it's just stunning.
Yeah, and Cassian's journey especially, that's something we've been talking a lot about. Obviously, it's like the impetus for the series. It's like, how does Cassian get from, like, rogue scoundrel who is trying to hide from the Empire and forget it exists to man who is willing to die on the beaches of Scarif? Like, how does he become that person? And how have you felt about Cassian's journey thus far? And, like, what were some of your expectations going into the series? And now that you've seen the final episode of the series, or of the season, how do you really feel like he has taken a turn for his journey?
I think one of the best things about Andor is that its basis is the same thing that, like, Rogue One's basis was. Like, it's a single line, a few, like, words that are spoken in the opening crawl of A New Hope. And Cassian's story is like a few words that he speaks in Rogue One. You know, he states he's been in this fight since he was 6 years old, or, a child. And I'm really glad that we got to see, like, the foundational reasoning for, why he would be out there being roguish in the first place. We got to see a little bit more of his background. We got to understand why he is the complicated character that he is in Rogue One. Because I feel like out of a lot of our heroes in Rogue One, like, Cassian has never gotten, I think, the empathy and sympathy. And this is maybe just my experience, but, like, he hasn't been like the baby character. Like, he's nobody's baby, and like his, you meet him and he shoots someone on screen immediately. And so I feel like, he being able to see what brings him to being that character who can just, like, shoot someone right off the bat, like, even though he sort of starts that way too. I've been really interested in seeing the way that, like, Diego Luna has built up this character, has given him layers, and let us, like, really spend time with him and understand what leads people to joining the rebellion.
Yeah, I remember walking out of Rogue One and being like, I need a Cassian Andor book stat, like, right now. And, obviously that didn't happen. And I don't think I ever thought in my mind, oh, they're going to make this story into a TV show. And so when that happened, it was, like, better than anything I could imagine, because of course it means Diego's coming back.
Yeah.
And getting to see his, like, really thoughtful performance, and just his presence in the Star Wars and his leadership in the Star Wars, like, that's it, and I agree with you that what makes kind of this series so interesting and so great is that it is just based off of those few words that make us want to know more. and it just creates it's a new sandbox to play in, and I think that is always so exciting. It's perhaps one of the silliest things about Star Wars is that we can do this, take a single line and be like, ah, yes, this is the thing, and and make it a whole thing. But it's also one of the most exciting things because it means there are infinite threads to pull on. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Maybe we can manifest, since Rogue One started from the opening crawl of A New Hope, and then the Andor series sprung from the spring off of A New Hope and Rogue One with a line, and then here in the show we get Luthen saying an equation I wrote 15 years ago. So maybe we'll get the Luthen TV series. Maybe now we'll have the like super meta like another series spring. It's like a Russian doll, like every Tony Gilroy project, you just open it up and there's another one inside. It's like, oh, there it is.
I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, I would give all sorts of money for more Tony Gilroy in my or the Gilroy brothers really in my Star Wars. Like I've really enjoyed like from the direction to the storytelling to just like all I think there's just so much about Tony Gilroy's work that, like a couple months before Andor premiered, I rewatched Michael Clayton with my partner, and it just got me so excited for what we were about to see in Star Wars. Like I knew that what we were about to like watch was like nothing we'd ever seen before, and like his full like reign over this project has just been like marvelous to watch.
Oh, totally. I still have to watch Michael Clayton. I need to dive more into Tony Gilroy's filmography. That's the goal right now. What were you going to say, Sarah?
See, my connection to the Gilroys is Nightcrawler, which was a Dan Gilroy project, which, Jake Gyllenhaal forever snubbed. We'll never be over it. Oscar's opinion, like that's the one I've got going on. But yeah, I think once I put the connection together, I was like, oh, this is this guy. It's like, oh, okay. And then, I forgot about it in a lot of ways. And I was trying not to like build up a ton of expectations for myself. I was kind of focusing in other directions because I got a new job kind of right as the series was about to premiere. And so like every week is just like the greatest surprise, the most delight. I'm like, oh, it's good again. Huzzah. So yeah, I feel like I have to go back and watch all of their work. And we had the opportunity to speak with Beau Willman, and he's written like 12 plays. And like, I want to go now and like read all his plays because that man wrote the Luthen speech, like I kind of want to really explore everybody's work on this team because they came together to really make some magic, but it's clear that they've all, had great work individually. So
yeah, it's really incredible, like what was done with the series. And I totally agree. Catrina, more Tony Gilroy. I don't know what capacity he's serving for season 2. If it's just more of like a producer, I think he just said like producer or executive producer as opposed to like directing episodes and stuff. But at the time we're recording, finale dropped today, and there's more interviews coming out, and he's spilling even more beans on season 2, which we'll get into. But I just need more of this show. How can we wait 2 more years for more Andor? Doesn't seem fair.
Like, I'm excited that we are going to get so many new shows in the meantime. Like, The Mandalorian might help me gloss over a little bit, but it's not going to be the same. So
it's not. I mean, hopefully, like The Acolyte comes sooner rather than later too, because like I think I get good energy from that. So yeah, I don't know. The wait feels so far away.
Oh yeah, no, I'm excited for The Acolyte. Like I just finished rewatching Russian Doll, and just like, Leslie Headland's work is so incredible, and it's another new voice that I hope gets to like play in the sandbox as freely as we saw the Gilroys play with this show, because I think it could be really cool and super weird, and that's what I want for my first big High Republic story, is something super weird.
I think we're going to get it, but that's just like, that's a whole other episode of me just going like, I think this is really going to be cool and weird.
Yes.
This is the Andor show. It's very serious.
Catrina, earlier today, you tweeted out Adria Arjona and Genevieve O'Reilly and Fiona Shaw and Verada Sithu and Faye Marse and Denise Goff. Thank you for existing. And I was like, yes, that's the tweet of the day, because the finale put so many of those women at the forefront, especially Fiona Shaw. Like, I just did not think we were going to be getting a eulogy, a self-given eulogy, which in some of the interviews I was reading with Tony, he said that would be sort of the bigger impact than seeing her death, right? And if we saw her death, then the speech would have been a little more anticlimactic. So I like that they saved it for the finale. And Denise Goff in this episode is just cunning. She is on the hunts. You know, you do not want to get in her path when she is looking for you. That's for sure. Or maybe you do. I don't know. At least I do.
Some people do, evidently.
I didn't see that tweet till just now, and
yeah.
I get it. The power of a bomb trench coat.
Yeah.
No, I didn't see that tweet. I missed it, but I have not been online a ton today, and I just went and retweeted and liked it because I agree it is the tweet of the day.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you know, we, as much as we like gush over Stellan Skarsgård and Diego Luna and the incredible performances in this show, like we are really, I feel like we're really lucky to get the women of this cast because there are so many complex characters, and I left out, you know, the young lady who plays Lita. I left out the woman who plays Jezzy, who I really hope we get more Jezzy in season 2 because this finale, like, she was incredible in it, and she went from a character who was like mentioned in a line to like this person on screen that we see like just being this member of the community who like takes the mantle and helps save the day. And yeah, just like from top to bottom, I mean, the paths that the women in this show are on are so intriguing. I love that we didn't have to bury any gays
oh my gosh,
in this finale.
I'm
like
so worried.
Yes, that was a huge fear of mine. Like I was really worried for Vel and Cinta, and they both made it out so far. So like, yeah, the women in the show are just incredible, and I'm so excited to see more of them in 2 years.
And it's awesome because they're each, literally every one of them, even Jezzy, who, you know, we have barely seen, is so richly and complexly drawn that I would be thrilled to get a book, get a show, get a comic of any single one of these characters. And I feel like it could happen because they are so complexly drawn. And I just really appreciate complexly drawn woman, because so many stories, you know, we all know this, reduced to one thing or pushed to the side, and this is not that story at all for any of these characters, which is great. And I totally agree on Vel and Cinta. I was so worried, especially because their whole arc over this season, there's this real tension between Vel wanting to prioritize their relationship in some ways, and Cinta, you know, putting the cause first and foremost and saying, I love you, that you're important to me, but at the end of the day, you come second to the cause. And like the pull there is really, I think, ripe for tragedy, and the emotional heartbreak of that. And I'm so glad we didn't go that route. Very refreshing.
Everybody making out of the finale too is just so special because I maybe it's the cynic in me. I just expect a big death. I don't know if it's the Red Wedding, and ever since that happened, my mind has just been like altered for the worse in terms of expectations for penultimate episodes or final episodes. But I love that because it really allowed the characters to have a full, complete arc in season 1 and not just an arc that ends with a death. And I think you need to allow these original characters to breathe, even though we don't see them in Rogue One. Like, give them some time. Like, give them some time to bake and to ripen a little more and to like really become fully formed. And in season 2, we know that there's going to be a year time jump starting with episode 1. And Tony Gilroy said today that none of the characters we've seen will die during that time gap. It remains to be seen how long after the time jump they'll survive for. He's like, it's not off the table after that. But even if Cinta and Vel, something happens to them in the second season, like at least they had that entire first season to exist. But I think that's just so important to not just give in to the senseless death and to sort of have the martyr status for some of these characters. I don't think it's necessary, and the show is way too thoughtful for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love how pointed the losses are too. Like the fact that we didn't see almost all of the women, like save for Maarva, everyone has come out with their heads attached. So like, it's been really refreshing to see that. And then I think in general, like if you guys don't mind me like pulling into this, but like there's a sense of community in Andor that I have never really seen in a Star Wars property. That like the culture that is Ferrix is something so refreshing and new and rare. And to see all of these people, these neighbors, band together and like basically take down the Empire with like their pots and pans. I think that was the other big impactful thing for me is just like, look at what we can do if we are simply a community, if we simply take care of each other.
Yeah, that's something we talked a little bit about with Swara on episode 11 discussion, because that was something that for me is perhaps the most refreshing piece of this entire series. And there's so much that is refreshing about this series, but I think we live in a world where like our sense of community is not as strong as it could be. We could do a better job of caring for one another and, of looking out for each other, both online in our real world communities and our families and those who are physically around us. And I think the Ferrix is such a great model for strong, caring, thoughtful community. And I, again, was just so surprised, so refreshed, so delighted, but truly, by the fact that Ferrix ended up being the place we went back to, because the first 3 episodes were in this one arc, and then the second 3 episodes were literally somewhere completely different. I was like, oh my gosh, are we never going to see Adria Arjona again? Her character is so interesting. Give us more. She was at the premiere. Come on. And I was like, are they really doing this? But no, of course there was a plan in place. They knew exactly what they were doing. I should have never have had a second of doubt, Sarah, but it's okay. I did. But I'm always on the wrong side of these things, and that's okay. Sarah, her losing bet streak. It's fine. But episode 7 comes around and everything starts to get put together. And the fact that Ferrix is the place where this happens, and what Tony Gilroy said about, this is a season about everybody kind of finding their personal rebellion and what it means to them, is just so beautifully told with the community of Ferrix in this Rick's Road episode.
And that's at the forefront of Gilroy's mind with the series. In the interview with Nerdist, somebody, Michael Walsh, asked him, in what ways do you find the story hopeful, like despite the death and the sadness and the suffering you see in Star Wars? And he says, I get emotional about community. That's why it was such a joy and why we put so much time into building Ferrix. And then he says it's a place, this place has such a sense of community, and it's such a non-dystopian place. It's not a utopia, but it's such a good community. And so the word community, like, is just so on point. Like, I tweeted that this morning right after the episode aired. I've never seen a Star Wars project emphasize the sense of community and the importance of community and what we can do together when we unite as a community, as I have with Andor. Because it's one thing to see, the Rise of Skywalker, you see all the big pilots and the big fleets come together, because that's firepower. That's like the big stuff. Or to see the Jedi come together at the end of Attack of the Clones, that community, right? They come together with their force powers and their lightsabers. But we're talking about people who wake up, they go to their job, they grapple time sometime during the day. They want to, they feel
multiple times,
multiple times during the day,
Not just once a day. You got to tell it every hour. People got to know.
They go home, they feed their family, they get a drink at the bar, they have fun, and they go back to sleep and wake up the next day and do it all over again, right? These are just average people, and seeing them and like what their community means. And like he said, it's not utopia, but it's not a dystopia. It almost feels like this sort of really special place within the galaxy that was, I don't know how it went for so long without sort of being on the radar. And unfortunately, that's to Maarva's speech. For so long we forgot, we were sleeping because we had Ferrix, because we had this non-dystopian place that we cherished and we wanted to protect. And then once the Empire went up on our doorstep, we realized, oh crap, we were not paying attention. We were not looking in the places we should. We were so insulated. And seeing how quick they are to rise up together was really cool. And Brasso hit somebody in the head with a brick, which was just like,
front.
That's a real community right there. Honestly, that's the real defining moment.
When I die, if my brick gets used to hit a cop in the head, I will not be upset.
Exactly.
Not gonna happen. I love it. No,
Oh my gosh.
I adored that. Like, there are like moments where we kind of get breaths of what Ferrix is, because it's one of those communities. It's one of the few that we've been in and we got to like live in that has like a long term, like centuries old culture that is built up. Whereas like in our discussion just now, I started thinking about Cobb Vanth and his community and how they banded together too. But they're so new. Like they've been a town for maybe about 5 years when we meet them in the Mandalorian. If we're following like established timeline and stuff. And so it was cool that like, that was a nice like blush of what we could get when it comes to like the themes of banding together and community and like the people versus the authorities and power and stuff. But like this whole thing with Ferrix, like they were coordinated from the start. They know each other's neighbors' babies' names. Like they the bells ringing was one of like the first things that made me go, holy crap, with Andor and like this display of culture is everyone in the city knew what that was, and the Imperials were confused by it. And it's something that just like, it resonated with me both literally and figuratively. I really enjoyed that.
One other thing from the entire season that I think is pretty notable is this was a story about motherhood in a way as well. Like,
yes,
we've really been lacking stories about mothers, and Star Wars is so focused on the father figure, Luke and Darth Vader and Ben Solo and Han Solo. And those are all great stories. And I cherish those stories to my final days. I will cherish them. But motherhood has really just been lacking. And to see figures like Mothma, who we find out in the show is a mother. And then you have Maarva, who is another mother. And the role that they play in the show, I think, is really unique. And Cassian connecting not only with the father in the finale with Clemstone and remembering some of his ideologies, but also getting to hear Maarva's speech, akin to Jyn Erso hearing her father's speech in hologram form, which I just love that parallel so much, and it breaks my goddamn heart. But that is really special. Did you guys feel that, just like the presence of moms in Star Wars this series so far, and like, do you feel like that's pretty notable? Because I don't know, I think that was a necessary kind of idea to explore and to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely in an age where thankfully a lot of the moms get to be alive, and then the ones who do pass do so in a way that like is resonant and important and stuff. We got a little taste of like a mother daughter bond in Obi-Wan with Breha, who I was so excited to see, and I really want her to show up in the next season of Andor.
Yes.
But yeah, because please, come on, please, I've gotta see Bale and Breha and Mon together. But it was really cool to like see because I think what it did was add so many stakes to Mon Mothma's character, especially that were never there before. Like now, when I look at her in Return of the Jedi, I'm like, what happened to make you like this? Because even her demeanor, like now when she's in Return of the Jedi and she's being calm and delivering the news about the Bothans and stuff, I think about Genevieve O'Reilly's performance and how Mon Mothma like stood in tension, and how like she in even like the darkest moments we see her in this series, like you can see that terror in her eyes, but the composure remains solid. And I love that.
She's a brilliant actress and giving an excellent performance that, I agree with you, just adds layer upon layer. And I think the idea of motherhood in this series is really interesting because, again, it's not something I expected from this series at all. And Maarva, I think, is an interesting character as well, because she's this pillar, not only to Cassian and his growing up after, and I can't think of the planet name right now. I'm not very good at this. I'm a fake fan. But after she kind of rescued him or took him from his home planet, kind of became a pillar in his life. but also became a pillar of Ferrix. And so her motherhood is not just about her, familial bond, but it's about the role she plays within her community as well. And I think that is really interesting. And again, complexly drawn women who aren't reduced to one trait or one experience of womanhood, alone, I think is so grand. And yeah, they're just excellent characters. So I'm really glad we kind of got these interesting and thoughtful representations of motherhood in this story.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to continue exploring Mothma's motherhood in season 2. And by the time a year later, is the arranged marriage, is it already in place? Or are they in it? How does that sacrifice feel for Mothma? And we know that it's something Leda wants to do in this episode. And we see at the end of the finale that she seems pretty ready for whatever's next, or open to the possibility, right? And yes, I agree. Bail and Brea in season 2. Catrina, can you settle the score here? Jimmy Smits is showing up in season 2, right? I mean, that's like a given.
But what if he doesn't?
I will be very sad because I really enjoyed his performance all the way through Obi-Wan. I love Bail in the Tales of the Jedi episode with Ahsoka, and he's such a key character to like all of the threads of so many different characters in Star Wars. And I just want to see him acting his ass off to a script that is written at the caliber of Andor, because I mean, this man comes from like a law show background. He knows how to really hammer a performance on like with any words. But I would love to see him like have Oscar level words, because that is what Jimmy Smits deserves. And
I agree.
I think, yeah, the political intrigue of Star Wars is a place where you can do it and still give the actor this opportunity to play. So I really genuinely like Bail, Breha, and Ray Sloan are like my 3, like, please give me these people, please, in season 2.
What if he's not? But what if he's not? But
so
now
sad.
You've made my but what if he's not even sadder, because you're so right about the dialogue. You're so right.
Jimmy Smits needs that Disney paycheck. Bob Iger, I know you're a frequent listener of this podcast, and that's the decision to come back to Disney is so you could give Jimmy Smits a paycheck, right,
yes.
Bob?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Bobby, come on.
He doesn't need the paycheck from Disney, but, he should get it just because he deserves it.
You should get it. Like we all know what happens to Bail eventually, so let's get as much Bail as we possibly can.
I agree. I agree. My king, Bail Organa.
I could watch a series about him drinking calf. So,
So I want to jump to like the final scene of this episode a little bit, and Luthen and Cassian and the idea of season 1 being the education of Cassian Andor, and that's been thrown around quite a bit from Gilroy and some of the other creators. Like they never had a working title for the series that was purely just this is the education of Cassian Andor, and it's such an interesting idea to lean into. And you see that final scene with Luthen and all of the things that Cassian has had to go through in the series. We've had so many different arcs from Aldhani to Narkina 5, then to the final thing on Ferrix, and like all the people that Cassian has met along the way to make those things happen. So Gilroy gave this quote that says, you want to see him wake up, and you want to see him learn, and you want to see him radicalize without having a shopping list where this week's lesson of the week. You want to make sure that along the way you tick all the boxes. What do you feel like was maybe like the most formative experience for Cassian, or if you had to like maybe pick one experience or one person or one person, pun intended, what do you see as really the most defining moment of the season for Cassian that led him to the point to tell Luthen, kill me or take me in?
Yeah, I mean, he's been through so much and seen so many. I think the thing about Cassian and his education is that he has been exposed to so many different viewpoints in such a short amount of time. Like what we see happen to Cassian in this series happens in less than a month. He goes through all of that in like less than a month, and I think that's earth shaking for someone. Like for all of those different perspectives, from like Nemik to Kino to even like Melshi, like these very radically different people being radicalized toward the same cause or the same like theme, I guess, like helping others selflessly is something that's kind of hammered into him in so many different ways. And so I think, one of the things that a lot of people talk about when it comes to Cassian is that he is this character who inspires like leadership in other people. And he is just kind of like this player in their game in their story. So it's interesting to see Cassian, who is our lead character, sort of be that like helpful NPC in other people's lives and go from someone who is a rogue trying to stay out of trouble to, this person who is basically on the brink of leadership. Like we see those final scenes with him, like arranging everyone to get into that ship and fly away. Like when I saw Jezzy and Brasso and Bix and B2 in that ship, I was like, oh, is that going to be Cassian's first rebel cell? Because that looks like Cassian's first rebel cell to me. With you could throw in Cinta and Vel, and it would be like a complete set, basically. So I definitely think that's kind of what we're seeing with him is like he eventually becomes a captain in the rebellion. He is a trusted leader that Mon Mothma sends on a mission with this like renegade kid that they just found in a jail cell. So like he has to earn that respect from, not just Mon Mothma but the rest of the rebellion who like bands together with him to go eventually and sacrifice their lives for the cause. So yeah, I think like this is that grand first step into, I'm here for me, becoming I'm here for the cause.
Mm-hmm. A month. I didn't even think about that. Christ. That's the most chaotic, stressful, no thanks sort of month ever. But yeah, for me, like thinking about everything that he goes through in this season, I think, gosh, is it the end of episode 7? I think or 8 when he gets rounded up on Nymos and is tossed in this terrible prison on a completely other planet for literally nothing. I think that was a huge kind of wake up call moment for him, in realization that like, oh yes, I just did this thing on Aldani and everybody died essentially, and that was a really complicated thing to do, and now I'm out, to oh my gosh, this affects me too in this way, and realizing from there as it gets worse and worse for him, what he has to do in order to fight for his life and for the lives of the people around him and ultimately for the galaxy. So I think like that's the piece for me, that I think is probably his biggest switch moment. But he's definitely experiencing a ton of those in a domino row, um, over the span of a month.
What a tough month. That's putting it in that perspective is really insane to think about. I do agree. I think Narkina 5 was really biggest eye opener for him. And not to say Aldani wasn't, but Aldani was sort of like a taste test a little bit. He meets like so many different walks of life on that mission. And it's like, oh, we have Gorn. Like, why is Gorn turning on the Empire? He's in such a position of authority. Like, why wouldn't he just kind of toe the line and stick with it? And you have like Vel and you have Cinta. You learn a little bit about her background. And then he meets Nemec with his manifesto, and that kind of changes a lot for him as well. He meets so many people along the way. And I think that's the most impressive thing about the series is everybody has served a purpose in one way or another, and everybody ultimately is helping the rebellion to win inadvertently, right? And that to Nemec's manifesto, right? He says there's so many people out there who don't even realize they've already enlisted in the cause. Like these people don't even know what they're creating and what they're opening Cassian's eyes to, and what he will eventually become like an unstoppable force of good, like Maarva says. This show is like all butterfly effects, which I love. It makes every moment matter, and you see the purpose of the show. It's not like, oh, Cassian dies, there's no purpose. Like, no, it's about the journey, not the destination with the show. yeah, to your point, Katrina, about him being a leader, I'm so excited to see like what his MO is going to be in season 2 and how that changes for him, and like what does it go from education of Cassian Andor, like what's next for him. um that will be really interesting. How do you guys feel about the time jump though, like with season 2, and we're not going to really get to explore some of those early days with Cassian? Do you feel like that's sort of appropriate to then meet Cassian at a new point where he's been established with the rebellion and he's sort of maybe led a couple of missions and he's really forming into his own?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a time jump being detrimental after all the information we've been given in this show. Like, I think you're hitting the nail on the head there, where that final scene with Cassian and Luthen, it really tells us a lot of the story about what's going to happen next. Like, clearly, Luthen is not going to kill Cassian. Um, we know he's not going to die. So I really think Luthen is going to make the choice to bring him into the fold. Cassian's really proven himself not just as someone who is like useful and skilled, but someone who can be a leader and get his people out safely and just take on multiple obstacles in life that would be larger than any one person. And yeah, like I think, and Cassian in the same respect is like, he believes in the cause now. Like, he has a reason to fight. And it's not just for himself, it's not just to find his sister, it's because he has seen the evil of the empire, and he's seen that they're never going to stop unless some people rise up against them. And so, yeah, I mean, I think with all that context filled in, like, I don't really need too much. I have a feeling we're not going to get to I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna like have him come in and like already know Mon Mothma or anything like that. Like, but I definitely think we're going to have the context that Cassian has maybe had a cell for a little time, or a little bit of time where he's been working with Luthen, kind of in the same respect that Vel does. And yeah, like if worst comes to worst, they can give me like a 5-issue comic and just fill in the gap, and then we can hop right into it. But I think as far as like knowing where Cassian's going to be, like, we've already been given that story.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. I think for me, like, I remain a little skeptical because again, I take the losing bet. That's how I work, like I have no reason to doubt, and I don't doubt about season 2, but I do wonder, just because the structure is going to be so different in many ways, with the episodes, each kind of arc covering a year leading up to that final moment, which he's already told Tony Gilroy, and we're on a first name basis, obviously, which Tony Gilroy has said is going to be the final scene, which is him walking up to Tivik, and then that leads us into his story in Rogue One. So I'm really curious about how they will continue to expand upon his character and give us the same depth of character moments that we've gotten in this season, next season, with the structure being a bit different. But I don't doubt that it'll be great. And I think that you're right, Katrina, just about like him having a cell and that final line really being instructive for the audience about what the next year will look like, even if we don't see it. But if they want to do a comic run or a little book or just like a little thing, I don't know, I wouldn't say no to it. Like more Cassian content, sure.
Oh yeah.
The idea of Cassian having his own cell really excites me because we know he becomes a Fulcrum agent. So like, who are going to be the first initiates of the Fulcrum program, which is why I'm saying Bail Organa has to be in the show, because he literally forms the Fulcrum program. It's his whole thing, and Cassian is a Fulcrum agent. So I'm like, he's got to be there. But who knows? Like, could Vel be a Fulcrum agent? Could Cinta become a Fulcrum agent? Could like Bix or Brasso be Fulcrum agents? Like, the sky's the limit here, and that really excites me. That maybe we will get to spend a lot more time with each of these characters from Ferrix, and like, are they all in on the rebellion? I think the biggest challenge though will be Luthen, and like, how does he now deal with like more hands in the pot, trying to be so secretive in season 1 to then going loud in season 2 and trying to like establish a base on Yavin and trying to connect some of these cells. And Tony Gilroy described it as Luthen has been building a startup company in his garage, and now he's opened the door. He's opened the garage door, and it's like, hey, come on in, right? That'll be like his biggest challenge.
He's gotta go at some point in this story, unless they're gonna be like retroactively put him into the original trilogy. Like there's gotta be something that goes wrong for him too, which I think would be really interesting to watch unfold. Not that I would like less Stellan Skarsgård in the Star Wars, but he's one of those characters where you're like, I don't think you're gonna make it, buddy.
Oh no, I mean, well, he doesn't think he's gonna make it. I feel like Luthen is going to be here for as long as he feels he is vital, and that kind of like guides his every move. Like everything he's doing is for a purpose, as he's stated very clearly before. So I don't think his aspiration is at all to see this thing through to a success. It's to basically, I would say, with Vel, with Cassian, lay the groundwork and have them pick up as soon as he is gone. Like making sure that he leaves something better than he found it is kind of where he's at.
Well, and there's also a moment of recognition on his face when he hears Maarva's speech on Rick's road. And Maarva's whole point is, I don't want to be remembered. I just want you to go on. So I almost wonder, did something connect with him in that speech? Like, did his perception of his purpose and like what he's trying to accomplish change from hearing the words of Maarva and Andor, right? And that would be really fascinating to understand that like idea of what is sacrifice, and is it just burning yourself to an ego that you can't control for 15 years? Or is there a greater purpose than that? Like, is it really about the legacy you leave behind versus like, can I survive another day? Because I think right now Luthen is in like, can I survive another day mode? Can I continue? Can I just preserve myself and my status? Like, sure, I'll get rid of Ansel Krieger and 30 men, whatever. That helps me out, right? Saw you're protected because you know me. It's all about him. I think it's going to be more about the cause than we've seen with Luthen in season 1. Would you think that's a fair assessment? Like, I feel like he's a little more self-preservationist this season, and maybe that will start to dwindle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's because he believes he's like the core of the rebellion, like he is one of the few players who is like willing to do whatever it takes, as opposed to Mon Mothma, who is connected to the rebellion, but she's spent this whole season learning what the sacrifices are going to be for her. Like I think that, we see her come into this and she's already like shell-shocked at exactly how much she's going to have to do and how much she's going to have to lose in order for this to work for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Some notable things about season 2. I did learn today Beau Willman is returning to write, as well as Dan Gilroy, which is huge. And one of the new writers is Tom Bissell. So that skyrockets my hopes for season 2. Like, oh yeah, this is going to be good, right? Like, because you can slot in directors pretty easily. Like, there are a lot of talented people out there, but the writing is just so delicate, and there's such a balance there that if that gets thrown off, the whole thing could fall down. It's like a house of cards, right? Pun intended, because Beau Willman wrote on House of Cards. But I'm happy to have Beau back, and some new directors in the mix as well. And also, Kylo Solar was on set this week filming as Cyril Karn, so that's also very exciting.
Just kidding. He's playing a new character in the second season. I'm kidding.
He's playing Agent Kallus. My like conspiracy theory is Cyril is going to change his name to Kallus, and he's just going to be Kallus. I don't know. That's just like total bullshit, but I just want to see Kallus. But that excites me.
One of my little favorite fandom things is when people draw the Fulcrum trio together. Ahsoka and Kallus and Cassian, and just like I would love for Kallus at least to cross paths with Cassian, because I think it's right around the same time that like he kind of drops into the rebellion. So
yeah.
I would love to see it.
Cyril Karn's still living his pathetic life. I'm imagining as an ISB officer, he got a promotion, unfortunately. I don't know. Him and Deidre at the end. I don't know if she's going to give him a promotion, if she feels some sort of life debt to him, but that is going to be really intriguing to see what his career trajectory looks like.
They're an incredibly chaotic, pathetic duo. I'm obsessed with just how chaotic and pathetic they are.
I want to see them drag each other to hell.
Yes.
I love it.
Not to get super extreme, like, and I know where, like, I don't want to pull ships into this, but one of my favorite, it wasn't even a ship, but like my favorite dynamic when Kylo was full Kylo bad guy villain was the prospect that he and Hux would go down miserably together, and they would just like, like before I had any hint that like, you know, Kylo would turn back to Ben, I was like, if he stays horrible, I hope he burns with this guy who makes him like so angry all the time. And that's kind of where I'm at with like Deidre and Cyril, is just like, oh man, like I want to see them go down in flames together. Just like two terrible people having terrible things happen to them because they work together.
You know what? I support that, frankly. I think that's hilarious and I love it. And you're right.
Like,
Like they just deserve to like spiral down and down and down together because they're just pathetic. They're pathetic. Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not so much I don't call it a ship. I don't ship them. I think Cyril is a creepy stalker, but I do think they're a chaotic duo, and
totally.
that is how I want to see them interact.
Yeah.
It's so hard for me with these two because I see so much of just like Denise and Kyle every time I see them, because I know like hearing their interviews and how excited they are about their characters and the way they interact. And like one interview was like, oh yeah, they like baking together. I'm like, what does that mean? They're coming up with recipes? I don't know what that means. And it's been such a weird thing throughout the season, because at first you're like, maybe there's something there. And you're like, okay, he's being really creepy now. I don't know if there's something there. And then this episode, you're like, huh, they're really close together in this closet. What's going on? And it's like, I don't really know. I don't think you're meant to know how to feel about these two. And I think Gilroy has been pretty clear about that. Like, you're supposed to feel uncomfortable with this duo. And Sarah has been saying Cyril is like Javert, and that's totally accurate.
He's gonna Javert himself.
Yeah, but now like I want to see them both Javert themselves. Like I want the two worst people, people in the galaxy somehow find each other and are horrible together, and they go down in flames, like Catrina says. Like that's like the ideal situation. And like when you throw Krennic in the picture, and you throw like maybe other ISB officers, maybe Callus, like when you start throwing more people in there against these two titular figures from season 1, that's going to get even more complex and chaotic and messy, and I love that.
Like I said, bring in Ray Sloan; those two will freaking crumble. Like that. I just feel like she's one of those people who brings like other ISB agents to their inferiority complexes. You know, like Ray Sloan is one of those people that like she got a cast member comment from Darth Vader, and it was great. So to compare that to like people on Deidre and Cyril's level, like I want to see someone come in and just activate like all of their inferiority.
Well, as we start to wrap up here shortly, we're going to get a couple of questions here from listeners. Our first is from one of our patrons, Levi, and he asked, what's the most pathetic Cyril moment, as we're talking about Cyril? I thought that'd be a great question to start with. So, Catrina, I feel like you probably have a good answer for this.
It's one of the early ones. It's when he like begs Cassian not to hurt him, or not to shoot him. You know, like it's ridiculous how like this man. First off, he gave like the worst like inspirational speech ever, and then he's like sitting here and he's like face to face with the dude who can literally like spit and inspire anyone in the galaxy. And like he's just like, don't hurt me, and then he gets all like tied up and he gets found because he's screaming and crying. Like it's so awful to see him like come in. He's like so gung ho, and then he ends up just like peeing his pants in the middle of the mission that he wanted to execute. So ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
Just to go with a different one, I'm gonna say that him sulking home to his mom's house and then getting told off by his mom is pretty peak as well, because just the way that was shot and like the way that he expresses on his face how like devastated he is, it's just like the greatest thing ever. I could watch Kyle Solar act all day long. He just has micro expressions for days. It's great.
Yeah, I would say mine, besides the speech, would be him filing 6 false inquiries at his job to find Cassian Andor. I think that's pretty lowly even for him. But I really do want to shout out Kyle Solar. Like, as pathetic as Cyril Karn is, like, Kyle Solar giving such a specific performance that we think he's so
It's
pathetic in
not
the role.
pathetic.
Like, it's so. I think he's like one of the strongest actors on the show. Honestly, like we are really undervaluing Kyle Solar's like contribution to the series. Like, he is so good in this role. I just love it so much.
I feel like it's so hard to play a standout Imperial because the fact of the matter is they've all fallen for like this oh, what's the word I'm trying to put out there, like the same ideal, like and from an outside perspective it just it feels so stupid for someone to fall for that ideal, and it's so hard, I think, for an actor to break the mold of being like an Imperial lackey versus like this dynamically pathetic character that Kyle manages to pull out. So just like,
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Our friend Danny, also a patron, thank you, Danny, writes, "You are forced to live with Cyril's mother. We're not getting off of Cyril yet. What is she nagging you about over your cereal every morning?"
I have ADHD. There are a number of things that she could hate me for, and because I am just the perfect storm for a mother like that to like just get angry about everything. Like, but I also I think it's I am pursuing a creative career, and I think that would definitely be like top of the top.
Oh yeah.
mine would just be my mom being like, "Why aren't you a doctor?" I'm like, "Mom, just because doctors make money, you don't understand. I just don't be a doctor. That's just not how the world works." She's like, "No, but you." I'm like, "Mom, I was in the 12th percentile on my chemistry placement exam at college. 12th percentile. You know what that means, Mom?" Okay, so that she would just be doing that the whole time. So different career choice.
So your uncle can do the math for you.
Exactly.
Our next question is from Travis, who's another patron, and he asks, "What actor deserves an Oscar/Emmy the most, and why is it every single fucking one of them?" Great question.
Yeah.
Let's each pick like one person we think is either going to win or at least get nominated, like surefire, one way or the other.
The person that with that as the bar, I definitely think Stellan Skarsgård. The person I would nominate would be Genevieve O'Reilly.
Those are great choices.
Yes to both of those. We're on a path, and I'm just gonna go with Kyle Solar because I just am obsessed with his face. It's the way he plays his character is so incredibly specific. But I literally cannot disagree with Stellan Skarsgård or Genevieve O'Reilly. I would love to see it. I agree with Travis. Like, yes, every single one of them. Everyone. Fiona Shaw.
I'll take a little different route here. I'll say Andy Serkis for
Yes.
outstanding guest performance. And also, I think Denise Goff will get a supporting actress nomination as well. If not Genevieve O'Reilly, because Denise Goff's performance was chilling. I've never seen somebody act so well with their eyes. It's unbelievable what she did.
She's got a scowl for the ages, truly.
Mm-hmm. I was fearful of her the entire series, and I don't know how I feel about that. I feel somewhat like, ooh, but also somewhat, So I don't know. I really love Denise Goff. Anyways, yeah. Okay, so our last question here is from Joe Brennan. And Joe asks, "I know Andor is quite separate from the rest of Star Wars, and I don't anticipate big cinematic universe crossovers, but are there any characters you can imagine appearing in future non-Andor Star Wars projects? And what kind of form could that take?"
B2 emo cartoon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cartoon or like a storybook with B2 emo in it.
That's the correct answer.
I think it'd be really interesting. That is the correct answer. I think it'd be really interesting to see Clea in something else.
Yes.
Like as a small character kind of popping up somewhere as her kind of maybe artifact dealer sort of character with the side rebel mission kind of a thing. I think that'd be really interesting.
Just to piggyback for 2 seconds, like, I've been thinking a lot about Clea lately and how gosh darn much she looks like Carrie Fisher. And I know that she's a little older than Leia, but Leia's about like 14, 15, right? And Clea can just put on a little extra foundation. I don't think she looks very old at all anyway. And I just really want some kind of parallel with Leia and Clea to Padme and the Handmaidens. Like, I want Clea to do some kind of undercover mission with Leia and just have the identity switch. Like, that's my Clea.
Oh my gosh, yes. Holy moly, yes. I'm okay. But like while we're here, 2 seconds. Clea, Leia, Lita. Like, what's up?
Yes.
What's up with that? What's up with
I
that?
tweeted about that once where I was like, maybe that's like, it's a naming convention, like Lauren, Laura, and Lori. Like,
Right.
They're all from the same root name. And like, Mon Mothma and Bale were just like, oh man, I love that root name. Yeah.
That's
We've talked about Bale and Brea, but what about Leia in season 2? I mean, she could be there. All I'm saying. But ever since Jordan Mason said it, I can't get the idea of a Mothma post Return of the Jedi series out of my head. Like, what does it look like to rebuild the Republic as a senator? And I think you could easily cast Genevieve O'Reilly in that role, like, very easily. So, well, that about wraps it up here at the end of our episode. And likewise, the end of the episode for Andor left us with the Death Star, and that is pretty terrifying. Quick thoughts on that, Catrina? Did your jaw hit the floor? Did you like run around your living room? I was doing laps. I could have busted through a wall like the Kool-Aid man. That's how excited I was.
I thought it was so perfect. I'm so glad that we didn't just like, I think I told you guys this before we started recording, but I'm so glad it wasn't like a character scene where it's like, oh man, Glup Shido is on screen now. Whoa. It was, it was still a character. It was the Death Star. But I think it was so great. It was so cool to just like see not only where it was at that time, but also kind of think about Krennic and like where he is right now and what his potential interactions with Cassian could be. Because, I mean, the only real interaction we get in Rogue One is him being surprised right before Cassian shoots him dead. So it's not like, we can write off Krennic knowing who Cassian is.
Mm-hmm. I just imagining Denise Goff and Ben Mendelsohn sharing a scene together. That would be glorious. That would be so good. But yeah, it is a sad note to end the show on, because you're like, Cassian helped build this thing. Not only the thing, but the specific weapon on the thing that will kill him. So the Death Star and Cassian are on a collision course, and I like how this post-credit scene is like, hey, remember that. This is his end, right? And also his beginning in some ways. Can't wait for season 2. With that being said, we're at the end here. Catrina, thank you so much for coming on and reflecting on season 1 with us and talking about some of our favorite aspects of the finale, which what a finale it was. Where can our listeners find you online, and what do you have going on that you want us to know about?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun chatting with y'all. Been excited about potentially guesting with you guys since like Star Wars Celebration. So thank you.
I'm so glad it finally happened.
I know. Oh, I'm so glad we finally got to chat, and especially for this finale, which was just incredible. You can all find me on the internet at Catrina. That's OHCATRINA on every social media platform that you look on, including Hive, which I just joined. And currently, my most recent project out is a fanfic on StarWarsEditorIG.com called Ventress Golden, which is a story about how Ventress got her lightsaber. Another Star Wars story inspired by a random line in a book.
Love it.
Yeah, and my other thing that is happening very soon is I will be debuting as a stage fighter for the first time at Los Angeles Comic Con on December 4th at 1 p.m. The League of Swords stage show will be a very cool, fun thing. If you like wrestling and or swords, you should definitely show up.
Ooh,
cool.
That sounds so exciting. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, me
Well, you're doing so many cool things. The Asajj story, especially. Everybody should go check that out. I'll link it in the description too of the episode in case anybody wants to go take a look at it. So, yes, thank you again. I'm so happy we managed to make this happen. Celebration, you were there, and then you're at the premiere of Andor, and it feels pretty natural to round out our Andor Candor season with you. So, very exciting stuff.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Thanks.
Well, for all of you out there listening, you can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Hive, and YouTube. Sarah and I are on Twitter, Letterboxd, and Goodreads. And wherever you listen to the show, make sure you're subscribed so all of our episodes drop in your feed. And if you'd be so kind, leave us a review so other folks find the show and join the discussion, because we got a lot of stuff coming up this next month. High Republic, primarily. Now that Andor is over, I don't know what to do with my life, so I guess I'll just keep reading books.
Exactly. We also have a Patreon where tiers start at just $1, and we're very grateful for all of our patrons who help make the show happen. Thank you to Amy, Brian with an I, Brian with a Y, Cheryl, Clay, Danny, Davis, Dylan, Huang, Jen, Knights of Ren, Leanne, Levi, Liz, Lucy, Lindsay, Rob, Saber Bouquet, Sky Talkers, Santa, Stephen, Chavis, and Tom. Thank you all very much for your support. And thank you to everybody for taking the time out of your day to listen to this episode. We appreciate it. We hope you enjoy Andor just as much as we did. And we look forward to continue our Andor conversations on the interwebs.
Definitely. Thank you all once again. Thank you, Catrina. And until next time, everybody, may the Force be with you always.
Bye.